a brand new name for a Westfield institution which is improving the health of our community every day with quality and compassion. Noble Hospital and Bay State Health. Better together.
WSKB's programming is generously underwritten by Whip City Fiber, Westfield Gas and Electric, where they offer gigabit internet speed. Whip City Fiber, turning Westfield's neighborhoods into fiberhoods. On the web at whipcityfiber.com.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Thursday morning from 6 till 8, it's Patrick Berry, owner of the Westfield News Group.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
This is Arts Beat Radio. I'm Mark Auerbach, and you're listening to 89.5 FM WSKB. The music in the background is from the Tony-nominated musical The Band's Visit, and a reminder that the Tony Awards are live on CBS TV starting at 8 o'clock on Sunday, June 10th, a week from Sunday, and The Band's Visit is one of several musicals that are nominated this year for Tony Awards. And speaking of Tony Awards, our first guest this morning has been nominated for several. He's the relatively new artistic director of the Nutmeg Summer Series at the Connecticut Repertory Theater down in Storrs at UConn, which is one of my favorite theaters because it's near the UConn Dairy Bar. I always love going. And welcome, Terrence Mann. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I love the Dairy Bar, too.
Yeah, that has become my reason to go to Storrs, other than the fact that you guys do some really wonderful theater in the summer, and I'm so looking forward to this season. You might as well give us a quick preview.
Oh, well, we're doing Disaster. That's our first show up, and that opens next Friday, which is, I believe, June. Was it June?
June 8th.
June 8th, yeah. For our first performance, the preview on the Thursday. And then we follow that up. That's Seth Rudetsky is reprising his role, and Jack Plutnick, who directed it, the off-Broadway production and the Broadway production, they're coming up to do it. And it's a wacky, zany romp. It's a kind of an homage, a wacky homage to the disaster movies of the 70s, like Poseidon Adventure, Towering Inferno, and it's just fun. You know, go get some Dairy Bar and come watch a fabulous, funny, musical with all source music from the 70s. So all of us baby boomers can totally relate and remember what we were doing when we were listening to You're Growing It All Sky High. And those
does it include some of the music that became famous because of the disaster movies, which I think were all sung by Maureen McGovern?
I don't know if that's true. I have to go look that up.
Because
that's good. Yeah.
I mean, she did the one for the Poseidon Adventure, where the morning after, and then I believe she did the disaster theme for the Towering Inferno, and there was a love theme for the movie Coma, but I'm not sure that anybody remembers it.
You are a bibliography of.
I'm supposed to be good at music. I'm supposed to be good and knowledgeable about musical theater, but I know trash disaster movies because I was just addicted to them.
Well, this is right up your alley, Mark. And then we're doing a sort of a hybrid concert version of Sweeney Todd, and I'm playing Sweeney, and Liz Larson is playing Liz Lovett. Ed Dixon's coming up to do the judge, and Andrea Behrens is playing the beggar woman, and then the rest are, of course, these fabulously talented college students that we've gotten from all over the country. And that opens on, when does that open? I think the 21st or
Yeah, it's sort of the
And
end of June. I'm going to give everybody
Yeah.
your website so that you don't have to remember dates or anything like that.
Oh, thank you.
But as you're listening this morning to Terrence Mann and me talking about Connecticut Rep and other things, it's crt.uconn.edu. So go over there, look at the dates that the shows are performing. You can actually order tickets online.
Right. And then the last show we're doing is Jesus Christ Superstar, which I've been wanting to do for a long time.
How did you choose this particular season? I mean, were these shows that you always wanted to do? Were these shows that were available? What goes into putting a season together for UConn?
Well, yes, but I mean, I have to go on what I want to do, what floats my boat, and what makes me want to, get up in the morning and go work on it. And that was part of it. The other part of it is what we feel like, the subscribers want to see. You want to, and disaster came along literally because I was doing a playbill cruise in Switzerland, and Seth Rudetsky was the musical director on it. And I literally was walking by his room one day on the boat. And I said, "Hey, Seth, what's going on with disaster?" And he said, "I don't know. We're maybe going to be doing it in London later." And I said, "You want to come up this summer and do it at CRT?" He goes, "What's that?" And I explained it to him. He said, "Oh, yes, of course." So that just kind of serendipitously came together. Like this, we wanted to do Jesus Christ Superstar last year, but we couldn't get the rights for it, so it actually worked out better. And Sweeney came along. It's probably my favorite musical. I did it back in the 90s, and I've directed it once, and I just wanted to revisit it, because that's something you can never get tired of doing, and it's always a challenge, and you just keep trying to set those challenges up, things that keep reaching ahead to get better at stuff. So that's why.
Let me ask you a question about Sweeney Todd. I mean, it's a very well-known Sondheim musical, and then there was the movie adaptation of it. So I think that it's a musical that many people know. But it's also done in the opera houses in Europe and here in the United States because it has an operatic tendency. What's the challenge of playing that role? It's got to be vocally really a challenge. Do you find that, or is it something that that you think of it as just a musical? I think we've lost Terrence Mann here. We will try to reconnect. Something's gone wrong. But at any rate, let me recap the season at Connecticut Repertory Theater so that you all can make arrangements to go. The series opens with Seth Rudetsky's musical Disaster, which is a takeoff on disaster movies, from Coma to The Towering Inferno to The Poseidon Adventure. The second musical on the series is Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street by Stephen Sondheim. It originated on Broadway many years ago. It's been done in the opera houses. It's been done in the theaters. And the third musical on the season is Jesus Christ Superstar by Andrew Lloyd Webber. And that will be performed to end the season. You can get the season information at crt.uconn.edu. Peter, we lost Terry Mann on the phone, so if you could try to get him back. Terrence?
Hello?
Hi, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I thought we lost you for a minute. But what's the challenge of doing Sweeney Todd and keeping it fresh and going in a role that's operatic and really can tax your voice?
Well, I thank God I don't think about that very much. I just I just think it's such an incredible story to tell. Musically, dramatically, and physically, and the challenge is to try to sing all of those notes. And, I don't know, I've talked to some folks who've done it, and they go, wow, man, I don't think I ever sang that whole show correctly one time in terms of, getting the right notes at the right time. But that's the thing about a Sondheim musical. It's like Shakespeare, because it kind of propels you along. Just the structure of it propels you along, and it is demanding. But fear is a great motivator, and you need to embrace your fears, and that's what I've done doing Sweeney Todd.
Now, in terms of musical theater / opera, where it combines back and forth, you spent a little time this year in New York doing an opera that's a musical about Jerry Springer.
Yeah.
How did that go? Had you seen it before? Is it something that has been around a while? Has it been done in New York before?
Well, it was originally done in London in 2003, I think, on the West End. And I remember only because I was doing Rocky Horror Show in 2001, and Jerry Springer came in and played the narrator. And we were talking about it after dinner one night. He said, they're writing an opera about me. I said, who's writing an opera? He said, this English guy. And so I said, you're going to see it? He said, yeah. And so it's been around since 2003. And then they did a Carnegie Hall sort of concert version of it with Harvey Keitel playing Jerry Springer back in 2007, something like that. But he's always been trying to get it to Broadway or near Broadway, and the Signature Theater and the new group, picked it up, and it was an extraordinary experience. Because he's written this, the whole show is basically a Jerry Springer show with all these characters that come on, but high opera, singing grand opera. Then at the end of the first act, Jerry Springer gets shot, and the second act takes place in his kind of dream nightmare state of purgatory, where the devil and gets everybody around him and says, I don't want to be in hell anymore. I want to go back to him.
How did audiences react to it? Did they find it funny? Did they relate it to the Jerry Springer TV show? What was the response?
I think his cell's dropping in and out.
Yeah, I do too.
Why don't we take the quarter past break and I'll call him right back.
Okay, we're going to take a quick underwriting break here on Artsbeat Radio, 89.5 FM WSKB. When we come back, we're going to be talking again with Terrence Mann from the Connecticut Repertory Theater. If you want to check what their season is, you can check online at crt.uconn.edu. And in the second half of the program, we'll be talking with David Lutkin, who's the star of the Will Rogers Follies at Goodspeed Musical, so don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise. All of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldState.bncollege.com.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
He rules the roost on Thursday from 6 till 10. It's Patrick Berry.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone, to Artsbeat Radio. I'm Mark Auerbach this morning with Peter Coles, our engineer. We're at 89.5 FM WSKB on the kind of foggy and overcast Westfield State University campus this morning. We're talking with Terrence Mann, who is the artistic director of the Connecticut Repertory Theater's Nutmeg Summer Series on the Yukon campus and Stores. Always worth a trip down to Stores, about 45 minutes down the road, for some good musical theater this summer, which opens with The Musical Disaster, continues with Sweeney Todd, and ends with Jesus Christ Superstar. Terrence, welcome back. How did audiences react to seeing Jerry Springer?
Well, because it's so irreverent and the language is pretty out there, but it's all sung in the style of grand opera. A lot of people were like, just kind of, what is this? But it's satire, and it's really funny satire, yet it's a very sincere sort of, take on who these folks are in the Jerry Springer Show. So everybody kind of walked away going, wow, what a completely contradictory set of theatrical values that are all coming together here. And I don't know, I don't even know how to explain it, really. It's just an experience of all these disparate parts that you would never think would fit together, and they do.
The part of the Connecticut Repertory Theater and the Nutmeg Summer Series is an educational component that's helping young actors who are in kind of the conservatory level and apprentice level get some good, solid musical theater experience. And you and your wife are very much involved in teaching musical theater in North Carolina. Who are some of the students and younger people that are doing Sweeney Todd, and what do you think they'll take away from it after they perform it for a couple of weeks?
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because that's part of the whole system that we adhere to, is that we bring up these professional actors from New York, and then 4 or 5 of them per show, and then the rest of the casting has to be done with the college students, and it's just a great sort of confluence of these pros that are out there and these young people, like, as you said, these conservatory actors, singers, and dancers, right on the cusp of coming into the workplace, to the professional workplace in theater. So for them to have a chance to, be on stage with, work with, talk to, pick the minds of these people that have been around for a while, it gets them, more information. Forewarned is forearmed, and it's this wonderful relationship that develops between all these folks, and people coming away, and the pros too. They get reminded of why they do what they do, and it reminds them of when they were coming up, and everybody gets inspired and or re-inspired by doing this.
Now, when you're done in Stores, don't you do an annual workshop down in North Carolina? We
do. It's called Triple Arts Musical Theater Intensive for high school students, and that is on the campus of Western Carolina University, and that goes from July 15th to August 4th. And that is a real musical theater boot camp for 3 weeks, singing, dancing, and acting all day long, and then we rehearse at night. At the end of those 3 weeks, we put up a big sort of show with about 19 production numbers and a band on the big stage down there. And here again, these are for high school students, so you're just throwing a lot of singing, a lot of dancing, a lot of acting at them, and you don't really have time to think about it. I think that's some of the most that's some of the best ways of maturing into being an actor. By, you're not thinking about it, you're not in your head, you're just doing. Make a choice, do this, be specific, just show up and be ready to perform. And at the end of the day, that's what it's always about, is performing. And so between Stores, between Connecticut Rep, and between Triple Arts, a lot of these young folks are getting their fill for the summer.
Did you have that opportunity when you were starting out? Did you get to do intensives and summer things, or did you kind of go the more traditional route, or people did summer stock, they apprenticed in theaters, and they went to New York and auditioned?
Right. You know, because I was going to school in North Carolina, and actually I was at Jacksonville University, and Bob Knowles, who was my acting teacher, was the production coordinator for The Lost Colony, which is, the story of The Lost Colony. It's on the Outer Banks of North Carolina in a big amphitheater there. And that's where for all 5 or 6 summers in the 70s when I was coming up, that's where I went and learned at the feet of Joe Layton, who was the director of that show. He's a Broadway director, but he loved The Lost Colony and took it over in the 60s. And so I went to school on that. We did have professional theater workshops that folks that came down that I worked with. I did the children's theater there as well. So that was my track. I didn't really do summer stock per se.
Yeah, and do programs like The Lost Colony still exist?
Yeah. Yeah, it's that southeastern and in Texas. There are a handful of outdoor dramas, which are mostly in national parks, and they are these reenactments of the actual historical event that took place on that site. Horn in the West was one. Another one is Under These Hills, which is up in the mountains about the Cherokee Indians of North Carolina. There used to be one in Jacksonville called Sword to Stone about the discovery of St. Augustine, and then Texas has got a few. So they're still around. They're still out there and really viable. I mean, that's a great way to cut your teeth on being a theater actor. I'll tell you, because you're at a 2,000-seat outdoor amphitheater, no mics, and you got to sell it. And that's a pretty separates the men from the boys and the girls from the women pretty quick.
Yeah, I was talking last year when we were doing one of the Arts Beat radio programs. We were talking with a choreographer who had been doing work at Goodspeed, which is a small theater, and then he said he went to the Muni in St. Louis, where it could take 20 minutes to go from one side of the stage to the other and to project to the last row. He said, you have no idea what it's like to do something like A Lost Colony or something like that in a huge, huge theater.
Correct. Yeah. I don't know. I suspect it's kind of like doing Shakespeare back in the day, where you have to take all these words and all of this storytelling and, hit the back row with it. And not only the big stuff, but the intimate stuff that's delicate, the intimate stuff that an actor has to learn how to project. So it's a real schooling.
Now, the theater at Storrs is a really small theater compared to a Broadway-size house. And people don't realize when you go to see a show on Broadway, those theaters are small compared to when you go see a show on tour at one of the theaters in Boston or Hartford that can seat 3,000 people. When you're playing a show like Sweeney Todd in a small space, like you'll have in its Storrs, is that much different? And do you approach that differently than you would if you were playing it in an amphitheater?
Yes, I'm sure that one does. I couldn't explain it to you. I mean, you're in a smaller house, but but everybody's mic'd nowadays, of course. So the nuance and the subtlety of performances are much more. You can allow yourself that luxury a lot more. I'm not sure there's a big difference between how you're acting or how you're projecting, and because you're on the stage and you're in the theater, and whether I'm in Storrs or whether I'm on a Broadway stage. I think I'm not really sure if there's a big difference in terms of if you change the way you act. I think you just kind of make sure everybody's hearing you and that you're enunciating, and because if they don't hear the words, then they're not getting the story. So that's always the basic, tenet involved in performance.
The Tony Awards are coming up a week from Sunday, and because you're based in New York, have you had a chance to see a lot of the shows that are nominees this year?
I saw a few. Band's Visit, and I think I'm not sure if I've seen what else is nominated this year.
Yeah. Anything you recommend? Anything that excited you in theater going this year?
The band's visit. Yeah. That was an extraordinary experience. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. The tour has just been announced, and it's going to kick off just about a year from now. So maybe it'll be playing around here, or maybe you guys will do it at stores.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have a wish list of shows you'd like to do at UConn?
I'm only concentrating on these three right now. I think at some point we'd like to do Little Shop of Horrors, simply because we have this amazing puppetry,
the Ballard Institute, I think it's called. It's right next to the Jorgensen, and they have a museum there that people can visit. Is it open while you guys are performing this summer?
Yes, I think so. Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I think it's open. Yeah.
So
that's a show we want to do.
How long? When will you actually sit down and plan the upcoming season?
We start talking about it literally in August, after the shows close and everybody is kind of regrouping and recharging themselves to start the year longs, because the Connecticut Rep is a year-round repertory company, and so they start in August to September for their fall and winter seasons. So Matt Puglisi, who's the producer, and I kind of start talking in August about what do we want to do, what are we in the mood to do, and we kind of get our shows together by October and November. I mean, we know what we're doing by then.
And how long does a show rehearse before? How much production time do you have before a show opens?
Well, that's the thing. We literally, you rehearse for about 10 days, 12 days. You have 2 days of tech, and then you are off and running in performance.
Okay, so the season opens with Disaster, and then Stephen Sondheim's Sweeney Todd, and then Andrew Lloyd Webber's Jesus Christ Superstar. And information is available online at crt.uconn.edu. And we've been talking this morning with Terrence Mann. Thank you so much for joining us.
Mark, thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
And I'm really looking forward to coming down and seeing Sweeney Todd. Unfortunately, you scheduled Disaster on the night of my high school reunion, so I'm going to a disaster of a different kind. Anyway, we're going to take a short break here on Arts Beat Radio. When we come back, we'll be talking with David Lutkin, who's the star of the Will Rogers Follies at Goodspeed Musicals. But before we take that break, I want to tell you, order tickets now and go down to Theater Works in Hartford to see The Invisible Hand. It's a political thriller about an American banker who is held hostage in Pakistan, and the people holding him hostage are considered to be terrorists by the American government. But what they're doing is they're going to take the ransom money that they're going to make him raise in the markets and in trading to feed the people in a province in Pakistan. It's a 2-hour thriller. You're going to wonder whether the guy is going to be able to raise the ransom, whether they're going to kill him, and how it's all going to play out. And I saw the show last night, and I thought I was on the edge of my seat, but it also brings up issues about terrorism, Islamophobia, and it's written by a young Pakistani-American playwright who won the Pulitzer Prize for his play Disgraced. He's a Tony Award nominee this year for Best Play for a play called Junk. It's called The Invisible Hand, and it's at Theater Works in downtown Hartford. We'll be right back with David Lutkin from Goodspeed.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Wednesday mornings from 6 till 8, it's Tina Gorman with Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Mark Auerbach in Arts Beat Radio here on 89.5 FM WSKB. Before we talk with David Lutkin from Goodspeed, want to remind you that we're on Fridays, every Friday from 8 to 9. Next week, Patrick Berry from the Westfield News Group is going to stand in for me while I'm away for the weekend, and his guest will be Sean Farley from the University of Massachusetts Fine Arts Center, and Sean is going to preview their upcoming season. Well, one of the shows that I got a chance to cover this year was the opening show at Goodspeed, the Will Rogers Follies. And it's one of my favorite musicals of all times. I saw it when it played in New York in the early 1990s, and I listened to the CD when I drive to work, and I was so excited that it would be revived because it hasn't been seen on major stages since its Broadway run. It won several Tony Awards, including Best Musical. It was written by Cy Coleman. It was directed and choreographed by Tommy Tune. And if you go to YouTube, you can probably find some of the production numbers from it. And they were legend. And the costuming was legend. So when Goodspeed Musicals said they were going to open their season with the Will Rogers Follies, I was just like really excited. And it exceeded my expectations. I wrote a review, and I used a word that I don't get a chance to use in my writing very often. I use the word sensational. So for me, this is a thrill to get to talk to David Lutkin, who is playing Will Rogers in the Will Rogers Follies. And good morning and welcome to Arts Beat Radio.
Well, good morning to you, and thank you very much for having me.
I know that you were in the original Broadway company of the Will Rogers Follies, and people, when that show opened, a lot of theater goers that were older knew who Will Rogers was firsthand. And it seems like over the years, Will Rogers, they may know the name, but they don't know much about him. But you bring him to life, and he seems to be, if he were living today, he would be a real good contemporary commentator like a David Sedaris or something like that.
Well, I think that's very true. My my father had seen Will Rogers when my dad was a boy, and he was quite something. And when I grew up in Texas, and so I heard a lot about Will Rogers, and there was the Will Rogers Memorial Auditorium and all these kinds of things. But of course, I never had the chance to see him except in the movies, and which he made many. But he was a one-of-a-kind personality and person as well. There's a line at the beginning of the show about collecting money for the Will Rogers Institute, which they used to do at the movies when I was growing up in Texas. And they would pass tin cans down the rows of people to collect their loose change for the Will Rogers Hospital and Institute. And there were a lot of people in the early 1990s who had experienced that when they were younger. He was an incredibly famous guy, but as you say, his fame has kind of dropped off the edge of the passage of time, I guess it is.
Now, in the show, you talk about the news in today's paper, and the night that I attended, you had a New York Times, and we're talking about the headlines of the day in the way that Will Rogers did. Who writes that? Is that you? Does somebody help you with that, or I'm just curious?
No, I make all of that up myself. Just the way that Will Rogers did. And therefore, there are, I have to say, there are good nights and there are not so good nights because the headlines every day, of course, are different. But I try to find something that either I think is funny or interesting, or that I think might be pertinent, as you say, to the kind of commentary that Will Rogers used to do. And that's what he did, was when he would speak, is he would often bring that day's newspaper or something that he had cut out of a newspaper, and he sometimes would form his whole talk just extemporaneously around what was going on in his own moment. And so that's what I'm trying to bring a little bit of that to the show, just the way that Keith Carradine and Mac Davis and Larry Gatlin did in 1991 and 2 and 3.
Kind of reminds me of what Paul Harvey used to do every day.
That's true.
When you came back to do Will Rogers this time, having done it a couple of decades ago, did you see things in the show now that you didn't see the first time around, or through your own, either because of your own life experiences or the way the world has changed?
Well, that's a very good question. I have done the show several times in between. First of all, a small correction: I was not actually in the original company. I replaced a fellow named Paul Yukina, who was the original Wiley Post. He left after the first year, and I replaced him and was the understudy. Playing Wiley Post, I was the understudy for Will Rogers. And for the remainder of the Broadway run, I watched it 586 times, I think. And I've done 7 subsequent productions, but 5 of those, at any rate, have been pretty much exactly what happened on Broadway, with a few exceptions and a few of the chorus girls cut out because they couldn't, the theaters can't afford to do the gigantic production. But this production at the Goodspeed Opera House is really interesting to me, and I hope to everyone else, and particularly people like you who saw the original, in that Don Stevenson and Kelly Barkley, the director and the choreographer, really went back to the very beginning, to Peter Stone's script and Cy Coleman's music, and really did their own production. It's been almost completely re-choreographed and restructured around the Goodspeed and the Goodspeed's stage, and their very different but incredible abilities with regards to stage craft and all of that kind of thing. So it's a unique production, and because of that, yes, I have seen many things in it and in the script that I had not really thought about before, because of Don Stevenson, and also because of the rest of the cast, of course, who are brand new to me, particularly David Garrison and Catherine Walker, who play my father and my wife, respectively. And they're just wonderful actors and folks to do anything with on the stage.
Now, you've been known throughout your career for doing works and programs kind of like American folk music and such, and people in our listening area may have seen you in your musical Woody Says, which is about Woody Guthrie. And what draws you to the American folk idiom, and how does it translate to doing something like Will Rogers' Follies, which, although it's very Broadway, has a lot of Americana written into it by Cy Coleman's music?
Well, that's something that I guess I came to sort of the two of those things that you mentioned. I always did theater when I was in school, and many long years ago, and did all kinds of plays and musicals and things. But underneath that, my beginnings actually, as you say, were in American folk music and the church. I always sang in the church choir and everything, and so I guess the common thread really is music of it all, and performance. And so those are the things that I've kind of done all my life, and for a long time after I got out of college, I played music in clubs and bars and things all around. I went to acting school in London and played in pubs over there. And when I came back to New York in the 1980s, it was sort of the beginning, I guess, of a wave of theatrical productions where the actors are also the orchestra. And so I began doing quite a few of those, and most of them, as you point out, about folk music, or a couple of, I did gospel music and country music and things like that, which are all very closely related, but not all the same. I said, wagging my finger, as everybody on the radio can see. And then I also was doing plays and legitimate musicals, I suppose you'd call it. And I got this fantastic opportunity to do Will Rogers in the 1990s, and there is a little bit of guitar playing, and Will Rogers actually played the banjo, and so I brought a little banjo playing to it. And so that's been a terrific opportunity for me, and really has been one of my favorite shows all through my long and checkered career. And Woody Says, the other, really kind of comes from the same place in many respects. I mean, Will Rogers was an idol of Woody Guthrie's. And actually the title, Woody Says, which, as you very kindly point out, we've done in Connecticut now a few times. Did it in Hartford back in 2014 at Theater Works, and had a wonderful, wonderful time. And I just recently did it at the Westport Country Playhouse back in January. The title of that show, Woody Says, comes from Will Rogers' own syndicated newspaper column, which was called Will Rogers Says. And after Will Rogers died in 1935, Woody Guthrie kind of took up the cudgel in 1939 when he began to write his own column and called it Woody Says, and spelled it differently, spelled it S-E-Z, to be even more hicky than Will Rogers. So they are related in many respects, and theatrically they are a little different. You're absolutely right, but I certainly enjoy them both.
How long did it take you to learn all those rope tricks for the Will Rogers Follies, or did you learn them for the Broadway show the first time around?
Well, I learned them for the Broadway show the first time around when I came on. The understudy, Paul Yukina Jr., who's a great guy, who is also a guitar player. He lives in Santa Fe now, but he did those rope tricks, and I was determined to learn them. And so the original roper, who was a fellow named Vince Bruce, who was really amazing fellow. He was an Englishman, and he was from Oxford in England, and was a circus performer over there and all around the world. And he really was, at that time, he was the best roper that there was. And he did the entr'acte in the show on Broadway, and he taught me the rope tricks that I do. And I do them reasonably well. I don't always get them perfectly right, but some of them are pretty difficult. And but as I've said many times, I wanted, since I was an understudy in a pretty big Broadway show, I wanted people to believe that I deserved to be there when I had to go on. So I worked on it very diligently.
Let's let our audience know that the Will Rogers Follies plays Goodspeed in East Haddam, Connecticut through June 21st. You can get ticket information at goodspeed.org. And David Lutkin, you're going to be up in our neck of the woods here at Barrington Stage over July 4th weekend with, it says, according to the promotion, David Lutkin and the Seat of the Pants Band, Give Me Liberty 2018. What's this show about?
Well, I did a show at Barrington Stage back in 2013, I guess. A wonderful show called Southern Comfort, which then went on to the Public Theater in New York City. And it was a terrific project. And since that time, I have come up to Barrington Stage with my little band to do something at the 4th of July. And I guess, once again, it all ties in because of the Americana aspect of the things that I generally do. And the reason we are called the Seat of the Pants Band is because we fly all the time by the seat of our pants. And these are all fellows and women that I have known for a long time in this community of theater and music. And really wonderful folks and just amazing players. And it's always been my great loves to put together wonderful musicians to play very simple music. And as a matter of fact, we're having hootenannies every Sunday here at the Goodspeed. After the matinee, when the matinee is done at 5 o'clock, we sit around with whoever shows up to play for about an hour, which is great fun. The Barrington stage is going to be July the 3rd and 4th, just a couple of days at William Finn's Cabaret. And I'm putting together, probably an hour and a half's worth of songs and a couple of stories to play around the loose theme of the 4th of July. And I can't remember. I'm trying to think what we did last year exactly, but I can't remember. So we'll just fly by the seat of our pants and see what we come up with.
Now you tour. You do a lot of touring with Woody Says, and Goodspeed is a tour for you, and the Barrington stage. Where do you home base?
Well, that's a very good question. And luckily for me, my wonderful wife Sherry lives in New York City, and so that is my home base. We've been there for quite a while, off and on, but I do spend a good deal of time on the road, and therefore sometimes I think I live out of the back of my car.
Do you find the audience is different in the various communities that you go? How are the Goodspeed audiences responding to Will Rogers?
Goodspeed Opera House is and will remain one of my favorite places to play, and a lot of that is because of the audience. They're just wonderful people from this incredibly beautiful part of the world. And I have a great time here. I was here, 10 years ago now, doing Big River, which was a terrific show directed by Rob Ruggiero, who's directing the show that's coming in now, which is Oliver, which is going to be next. And Rob and I got to know one another doing that show when I played all my different musical instruments all over the stage while everybody was holding forth doing that wonderful musical, which is right in line with all of the terrific productions that the Goodspeed always does. And I, too, just like you, I was very, very excited when they chose to do the Will Rogers Follies because of the people who work at the Goodspeed and also because of the audiences who come to the shows here.
It's a wonderful theater, and the people that work at Goodspeed are great. And you mentioned Rob Ruggiero. I just covered a show at TheaterWorks in Hartford last night, and he has done a wonderful job of building TheaterWorks and making that a major resource in the area. And they're actually celebrating his 25th anniversary at TheaterWorks with a big event in a couple of weeks. So he's I am a major Rob Ruggiero fan. Have to say that. What are you going to be doing after Will Rogers Follies ends?
Well, as you say, I'm doing concerts at Barrington Stage. I'm also working with my wife Sherry on a new play that is based on an old idea of mine from a long time ago about Appalachian music in the 1920s. And I'm working on that for a theater in Pennsylvania. And then after that, I'll be going to Poland to tour Woody Says in Warsaw and Krakow and Poznan and a whole bunch of other cities over there, which will be fun. That's a very short little run, 3 weeks, but we're really looking forward to it. Woody Says has been all around the world, and we really love doing it. And so this is our next step along that road. And then after that, I'll be going to Vienna in Austria to do a production of the Johnny Cash musical, Ring of Fire.
Huh.
And I'll be there in November and December.
How do European audiences respond to Woody Guthrie or Johnny Cash, an American folk idiom? Are they perplexed by it? Do they get it?
Well, I think it's. I don't believe they're perplexed by it. I'm sure some of them are, but for the most part, ever since I went to acting school in London, I have known, and actually even before that one of the most popular things abroad about America is the music. Not only folk music, but jazz, of course, as well, and rock and roll, and a lot of things. But the interest in Woody Guthrie abroad and Johnny Cash is quite amazing, quite impressive. I mean, we did Woody Says in the West End of London back in 2011, and had a fabulous run there for quite a while. And Johnny Cash, on the other hand, Ring of Fire, has done very, very well in many productions. I did it on Broadway in 2006, but it's done much better in the regions than it did on Broadway, in the regions of the United States. And so my wife and I and our little team are trying to get a foothold for that show in Europe. And so we're working on all kinds of American things.
When you do what he says in Poland, will there be like a simultaneous translation, or do many Poles that will attend it understand the English?
Well, I'm having the script translated into Polish, and we're going to, at the major venues, we'll be doing super titles so that people can follow along. And at the smaller places, because we will be playing some very small places, we'll have a libretto, the way that they used to at the opera, where people will have a translation of some of the major passages and also a synopsis of the story.
Do you have any plans down the road to record it or video it so that audiences that can't get a chance to see you live might have the opportunity to learn about Woody Guthrie through your show?
Well, as a matter of fact, yes, we're making a brand new live recording in Malvern, Pennsylvania, at the People's Light Theater in August, and that'll be available. I hope it'll be a recording of pretty much the whole show, and that'll be available on the website, WoodySays.com. That'll be available, I guess, sometime in the fall. I'm not the guy with the CD press, but I'm sure it'll be pretty soon thereafter.
When you're not performing Woody Says or Will Rogers or your own stuff, where do you go for your entertainment? What kind of things do you like to watch or see?
Well, I watch and see everything that I possibly can, but when you're working, it is difficult, that's for sure. And we had a wonderful run of Woody Says this past summer, and a year ago now, in New York City at the Irish Repertory Theater. And while I was there, I did manage to see quite a few things, and I try to keep my hand in on different things. My wife and I are going to go see Travesties next week when I have a day off, and down in New York City. And so I an old friend of mine told me long ago that you got to get out there, you got to watch things, even if you don't know what they are, And so I do my best to. I was up in Hartford just the other day. I went to see a very good friend of mine doing the Athol Fugard play that's up there at the Hartford stage.
Yeah, I got a chance to see that last weekend.
Yes, well, Randall Newsom is a great friend of mine. I did Inherit the Wind on Broadway with him several years ago, and he's a terrific actor, and that's quite the scorching play up there.
It really is. It's a very challenging play to watch, and how they learn those accents. It was so pretty authentic.
Impressive. Yes, and so there's I do a lot of spectrum, I guess, watching. Try to take in a little of all different kinds of things, and I love music, and as I say, we're having hootenannies down here, and I always love whatever songs people bring to the table, and I do my best to play along and sing along, and there's something about music that is, and of course performance, but in particular music, there really is something about it to me that really has always drawn me.
What kind of music are they bringing to a hootenanny at Good Spade? Are they bringing folk music, which this is not really an area that has generated a lot of folk music, or are they bringing show tunes, or what are they bringing?
Well, we do everything. We do a little of this and a little of that. We'll have a show tune, and then that we all try to, bang away on the guitar and the banjo and then make it work. And then we do, well, obviously we do a lot of folk music and some country music, but I also, coming from the South, I do a lot of New Orleans, Dixieland things and all kind of stuff. And we have quite the little ragtag bunch here. We got a trumpet player, and we got some of the kids from the Will Rogers Follies love to play percussion, and one of them plays the trombone. And we got a couple of guitar players, and we have a wonderful time every Sunday afternoon.
So it's every Sunday afternoon after the matinee.
That's right.
Okay. Well, first of all, Will Rogers Follies runs until June 21st. Get your tickets at goodspeed.org. David Lutkin will be at Barrington Stage on July 3rd and 4th with his, what's the name of the band again?
It's called the Seat of the Pants Band. Our motto is rehearsing is cheating.
And that's barringtonstageco.org. And if you haven't been to Barrington Stage, that's in downtown Pittsfield. And Barrington Stage is one of the two theater companies in Pittsfield that's kind of caused the renaissance in that city, about a half an hour away from us, up in the Berkshires. It's the seat of Berkshire County, and make sure you go up there and catch some of the stuff that they're doing there. Then you have to fly across the Atlantic to go to Poland to see Woody Says. And do you think at some point you'll revisit Will Rogers again?
Gosh, I sure hope so. It really is one of my favorites, and I love doing it. Whenever somebody calls me up, I jump at the chance.
That's great. David, thanks so much for joining us this morning here on Artsbeat Radio. It's been really great having you, and I really enjoyed your performance so much, and I found seeing the Will Rogers Follies the second time around, if you want to call it that, it was just as exciting and fun as it was the first time around, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And it's mighty good to talk to you.
Great talking to you, too. This is Artsbeat Radio on 89.5 FM WSKB. Peter Coles is our engineer this morning. Next week, Patrick Berry will be standing in at 8 o'clock on Friday morning to be chatting with Sean Farley from the University of Massachusetts Fine Arts Center about the upcoming season there. And they've got a great season up and coming. We're going to end the program today with another excerpt of music. It's called The Concert, and it's from The Band's Visit, which is one of the 4 Tony-nominated musicals this year. The Tony Awards air on CBS TV Live at 8 o'clock on Sunday, June 10th. So tune in. It's your opportunity to see what's big on Broadway. And this is called The Band's Visit. It's based on an obscure little movie about an Egyptian military band that gets lost, and they end up in a small Israeli town. And it's an opportunity for the band to perform for the Israelis and a little intercultural happenings. It's a beautiful, small musical, and I believe that I would put my money down betting that it wins Best Musical this year, and the national tour will kick off just about a year from now at the Providence Performing Arts Center in Providence, Rhode Island. So there's a good opportunity that in the 2019-2020 touring season in Boston and at the Bushnell and Hartford and stuff like that, the Band's Visit may be coming your way. This is Artsbeat Radio. See you soon.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services